Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I have another video for you guys from Seth the Programmer. This one is pitting Kratos against Thor. Now if you guys know me, you know that I am a big God of War fan. I absolutely love this series. And I also like Thor, and based on the thumbnail, he's using the MCU version of Thor, not the genuine Norse mythology version of Thor. So this should be interesting. Now I'm not all that familiar on Thor's lore and his powers and what he could do. And again, I'm talking about the Thor from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I'm hoping that he'll shed some light on what exactly Thor could do. I have some general idea as to how strong he is, but I am wondering whether or not he'll be able to beat Kratos, because Kratos has shown some insane feats in this franchise. So let's go ahead and watch this video. And also very excited for God of War Ragnarok. Let's go ahead and watch this video. And just volume as always. Sorry, I got to keep it low because you never know, there might be music. Oh
God
yeah,
of
there's
War
definitely
Ragnarok
music.
Is coming out sometime in 2022,
yeah,
and in the trailer for the game, we see Kratos.
For anyone who doesn't know, remember originally it was supposed to come out in 2021, but then it got delayed so they can work on the game. So now it is coming out in 2022, and I hope it does come out in 2022 because I really want to play this game.
Is finally confronted by Baldur's older brother, Thor, the god of thunder. There was a lot of foreshadowing for him in God of War 4, obviously, and we do know more than you'd actually think about him just from that game alone.
Yeah, the murals.
In this video, I wanted to focus on a different Thor for the fun of it, the version from Marvel Comics.
Okay.
Unlike the Kratos versus Thanos video I've already done, I wanted to explore the actual comic variant of the character, and not the MCU version, as we've already established in that video. The MCU is pretty With that, we will be having a
this is something that I think I've heard people say before whenever, people bring up the MCU version of either Thor or even the Hulk, is that they say that they're vastly weaker than their Marvel Comics versions. And, to some extent, I can kind of understand it. Like, again, I have a general idea of what these characters could do in the comics. And considering what they can do, like I said, I understand why they kind of had to scale them down, because it is pretty insane what they could do in the comics.
Description of the two, since I've already broken down Kratos pretty well twice on my channel, which I recommend.
Which we did watch, by the way. You can find it on the channel.
We'll mainly be describing how their fight would actually pan out. Also, for everyone asking, yes, I will be doing Kratos versus Thanos Part 2, featuring comic Thanos. But that'll be after this video, which interested me a bit more and will focus more on the combat abilities of the characters rather than their weird oddities and special abilities, although we will still have some of that in this video. Since we've talked about Kratos so much already, we might as well go over a few things Thor has done first to keep things a bit more exciting. To begin with, Thor in Marvel has many contrasts and similarities to the actual Thor from Norse mythology, similarly to the Thor from God of War. One of these similarities that the Marvel Thor shares with his video game counterpart is that they both battle the Midgard serpent, Jormungandr. A defining difference between the video game and comic version here, though, is that instead of slamming into the Yggdrasil and causing distortions in time, Jormungandr is just implied to be infinitely long, and Thor just beats the out of him. Basically, Thor might have beat up a snake as long as a universe or even longer. One of the funniest feats for Thor is one similar to a feat that Superman had within his comics. Thor is shown to be capable of lifting a book that actually contained infinite pages. Now, obviously, there are many differences between these two feats, such as cosmology, scaling, people arguing if Superman actually did it, and so on. However, this is a very bare minimum gauge of what Thor is capable of doing, as he pretty objectively just performed this action and did it easily as just a child. Another interesting feat,
which is actually kind of insane when you think about it.
The force of an attack that scales to the Big Bang itself, which wipes out the Black Galaxy, which is a galaxy-shaped celestial body that actually is as large as a universe when you step into it, further solidifying these universal levels of power for Thor in the comics. There is a box called the Casket of Winters that, when opened, freezes over all the realms of Asgard, which are considered to be fully formed universes. This includes places like Hell and so on, yet Thor gets blasted by the energy to freeze over numerous universes straight to his face, and all it does is blow him back a bit. As for Kratos, I've mentioned and gone
which
over
speaks to
in
his
great
durability.
detail in prior videos what he's capable of, but as I said, I'll briefly discuss his most impressive feats right now. He scales to Thor and Jormungandr, who were capable of splintering the Yggdrasil of the God of War universe, which contains infinite cell strands that transcend time and space and stretch throughout all of the realms, which too are universes like the Marvel version. Not only this, but the realms are stated to actually lay atop the Yggdrasil's branches, yet a baby serpent, not even the older one we see in the game, and probably weaker, younger Thor, splintered it. As an example, this is what a splintered tree looks like on Google Images. We then have further information through the novelization for the fourth game that a branch of the Yggdrasil stretches out to infinity, which would then equate to an infinite amount of cell strands. Kratos scales to this as Mimir is asked by Atreus who would win between Thor and Kratos, in which Mimir states that he's not sure who would win. This is interesting because he has known Thor for 115 years and knows what he's capable of, including fighting the Midgard serpent, while he himself mentioned that they split the Yggdrasil, yet Kratos can potentially win? Mimir also has seen Kratos fight throughout his whole adventure in God of War 4, including seeing him fight Baldur, Magni, and Modi. Mimir also states that Thor could never dream of being as ruthless of a killer as Kratos. But hey, maybe Thor will just two-tap Kratos and steal Atreus away or something in the next game. Who knows?
Which is actually something that a lot of people have been predicting is going to happen in the next game. A lot of people have predicted that the game is going to start with, basically what's going on right here, a battle between Kratos and Thor. Now, keep in mind this clip that he's using is from the end of the 2018 game, and you can see Atreus is still a young kid, just like looking exactly like he did throughout the entire game. But if you look at the new trailer, where they show you this scene, Atreus actually looks older, which again, it makes sense because they were using the same character model and the same actor, at the time, who was still young. Obviously, as time went by, kid got older, and they accounted for that by making Atreus older, but saying just, time passed, and now that's why he looks older. And in the new clip, in the new trailer, he does actually look older, so it's possible that this is where the game starts. I don't know, if I'm being honest. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Personally, I think it's going to open with, Kratos and Atreus going on some adventure and giving you the usual video game, tutorial, the usual thing that they do with video games at the beginning. Even though you've already played the game and you're familiar with the mechanics, they always do this thing where in every new game, they'll give you this opening level or not level technically, because there are no levels here in this game. But they'll do this thing where they'll send you out on a quest just to reintroduce you into the mechanics of this game. Throwing the axe, calling it back, attacking, defending, heavy attack, light attack, all that stuff. So I'm guessing the game's probably going to open like that, and then you'll go back home, and then that's when the whole thing with Thor is going to happen. Now, whether or not Thor would win, I don't know. I've seen some people theorize that Thor is going to win. I've seen some people theorize that maybe Kratos is going to win. And, then Thor is going to go back and he'll realize that he underestimated Kratos, and then maybe they'll have a rematch, and that's where Thor would win. And then the game will end. The game will end with a fight between those two where I don't know who would win. I think maybe Kratos would win, and their fight will be so epic it'll just cap off the entire story right here. Because if you don't know, this game, the sequel is supposed to be the last one. Like, it's not going to be a trilogy. It's just going to be 2 games. So I think the game is going to end with a battle between these two. And it's going to be what shakes up the entire Norse realm. And I've seen some people predict that maybe it's going to end with Kratos leaving. Either he'll go back to Egypt, which, if you don't know, there was a comic that was released where Kratos was in Egypt and he was basically communicating with the Egyptian gods. A lot of people have theorized that maybe he's going to go back there. Personally, I think maybe that's going to be the case because they did hint at the other lands in the 2018 game. So I think that maybe that was them setting up that Kratos is possibly going to go there, or they're going to make like a spin-off game with Atreus where he's going to go somewhere. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't think Kratos is going to die, if I'm being honest. If they do kill him off, I'm going to be really surprised because, look, I know a lot of people like Atreus, but I don't think this franchise can survive without Kratos. It's just Kratos is the franchise. I don't think people are going to want to continue without Kratos, which again is kind of weird to say because Kratos did die a bunch of times in the previous games, and they always found a way to bring him back. So I think even the original creator David Jaffe, I remember they were doing a panel where he even joked that death kind of doesn't really mean anything in this universe because even if you die, there's always a way for them to come back. Hell, Kratos did it in the first game. He got killed by Ares and then he just crawled right back out of hell. So, I mean, even if Kratos dies and goes to Helheim, I'm pretty sure they're going to find some way to have him just say that, no, I'm not going to stop right here, and I'm just going to climb back up, and I'm going to go help Atreus. Maybe that's what's going to happen in what I predict is going to be like their second fight. Like midway through the game, they're going to have a second fight, and maybe in a way to defend Atreus because he's about to die, Kratos ends up giving up his life, which will pay off something that was set up in the 2018 game, where Kratos said, I would do anything to ensure your survival, even if it means I have to give up my life. So if they do that, it could pay off what was said right there. And then when he dies, he goes to Helheim, and then he says, no, I have to go back, I have to save my son. And the reason why I say that is because I think if I remember correctly, there's a voice actor, Erika Lindbeck, who announced on Twitter that she was playing a character in God of War Ragnarok. Like she was cast to play a character in God of War Ragnarok. And I think if I remember correctly, I looked it up. Her character in Norse mythology is the one that drags souls to Helheim. So I think maybe that's probably what's going to happen. Kratos is probably going to die midway through the game. She's going to send him to Helheim. And I think Kratos is going to basically fight back and go all the way out to... he'll climb out of Helheim or... Yeah, no, he's going to do that, and she's probably going to help him as, payback for helping us with the, getting our souls back. The side quest that you do in the previous game. At least that's my prediction. Sorry about that long tangent. Just once I start, I couldn't stop because again, I love this franchise and I like theorizing about it.
With that, we can clearly see that these two are capable of handling universe-threatening and altering confrontations, and a debate is clearly able to happen between them reasonably. With that, we can now get into who would actually win and why. I think to start off with who would win, we should first elaborate on which versions of the characters we are using specifically and why. For Thor, we are using...
Because remember, in Marvel Comics, there's different iterations of each characters, and that's one of the reasons why people have always found it difficult to get into Marvel Comics because, there's so many different variations of the character. The way the character starts off is not the same as the character that they are now, because they have different people writing them.
His base comic version, and for Kratos, we'll be using his God of War 3 version at the end of the game. The reason for this is that God of War 3 and 4 strength-wise is often debated about, and even among the official staff that work on God of War indirectly. Examples being Cory Barlog, creative director of God of War 2 and 4, thinks that God of War 4 is much stronger than he was in his youth during 3, whereas Bruno Velasquez, lead animation director of every God of War game, period, believes that Zeus would utterly defeat Thor without any difficulty, and thinks a better topic of discussion is Zeus versus Odin.
So, by that logic, if Zeus could take down Thor, and Kratos took down Zeus, then technically, again, logically speaking, Kratos would be stronger than Thor. Now, again, the whole thing about Kratos, the older version, a lot of people have debated that, because he's older, he's not as strong as he used to be. Now, that is actually, I think, completely false because I think it stated, I can't remember if it was Cory Barlog who said this or if it was someone else, but I think they said that in this universe, when gods grow older, they become stronger. So if by that logic, and Kratos is a god, okay, they did kind of confirm that. So if that's the case, then that means Kratos, being older, is stronger than he was in God of War 3. And a lot of people forget that I think it was Cory Barlog who did write the game, say that all throughout the entire game, Kratos was not basically being serious. Like he was constantly holding himself back because he's basically thinking about Atreus. So everything that we saw Kratos do in the game, the 2018 game, he wasn't being serious, like he was holding himself back.
Is Zeus versus Odin. Now, being as Kratos from God of War 3 is obviously stronger than Zeus, whereas we previously established that God of War 4 Kratos is probably slightly weaker, we can then
I disagree with
God
that.
of War 3 Kratos would be stronger according to Bruno. Even then, regardless of who you think is stronger and why, it can at least be said that God of War 3 Kratos is far more useful in these types of cross-verse battles against other fictional verses due to his far wider variety of special abilities and equipment than his older variant, which has a more simple setup going for him, which will actually be relevant in this fight, in my opinion.
Now, see, okay, that I can see where he's coming from, because the version of Kratos in God of War 3 does have a lot of weapons, which was pretty much the norm in that trilogy. You know, every game you would have a different variety of weapons, and I think that that was mostly done just to make the game more fun. You know, give you a different version, give you a different weapon that you can play, and you can just you know, just have fun. You know, you can play however you want. In God of War 2018, I can understand why they didn't go that route. The most that they did, or the most that Corey did with the game, is just he gave them, like, you know, he gave him the Leviathan axe, and he got back the Blades of Chaos, and that was pretty much it. Like, they didn't really have different weapons, which I wonder if they're gonna do that with a new game. With God of War Ragnarok. I mean, it would be kind of cool if they did, you know, just sort of go back to their roots where Kratos has like different weapons. I've seen some people theorize that maybe he's going to get the Blade of Olympus back. I don't think that that's the case. If they do, it would be very fan servicey. And they would have to find a good way to explain how he has the blade back, because he left it all the way back in the all the way back at the top of Mount Olympus. So, I mean, like, how the hell does he have it back? And the Blades of Chaos, they did kind of explain how he has them back in the comic. Again, I would recommend people read the comic just to get that answer alone. Everything else is kind of meh. It's just it's not worth me telling people to go actually buy the comics, like all 5 issues, because nothing really happens. I mean, yeah, they answer a couple of questions, like how does he have the Blades of Chaos? That was a question people had with the 2018 game. Like, wait, I thought Ares took them away from him, so how does he have them back? They do answer it in the comic. Well, sort of. They still kind of leave you with another question, like, okay, but how is this the case? And other than that, like, they really don't. It's not really worth the money. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
So now we imagine how the fated duel would occur in practice. For starters, Thor is a very brute force kind of guy, similar to how Kratos is within God of War 3. We could probably say that the beginning of the fight would pan out in
Oh boy, this is anime content. Alright, let's hope nothing
a
happens.
similar way to maybe your generic Dragon Ball fight where they constantly barrage each other with hits over and over.
Yeah, sorry, it's just... If you saw a community post I did, you understand why I have to do this.
Thor has consistently shown throughout his comics that whenever he is pressed hard enough, he will resort to his special abilities and equipment. Not much is known about Thor's fighting experience, however, other than just flailing his fist around in a brutish force.
No, this is when he was fighting Sentry.
Combat. So even though
And
he has fought,
I think this was happening in, if I remember correctly, this was happening in World War Hulk, wasn't it? Yeah, when Hulk came back after his sort of kingdom that he built in Sakaar, I think, if I remember correctly. You know, it got destroyed, and he was led to believe that it was actually the people on Earth. And then he came down to Earth and basically took down the entire planet. And all of the heroes, he basically put them on trial for what they did. I'm not going to reveal what actually happens. I do recommend you go read it, but I think that's where that's from. Where they sent in Sentry to fight Thor, and that's how they resolve it. Oh, actually, no, I don't think that's where this is from. No, I think this is from Civil War, if I remember correctly. Because, yeah, I recognize the art. I don't remember who it is, but I recognize the art. I recognize the panels. So I think, yeah, this is definitely from Civil War. I could be wrong, though. It's been a minute since I've read it.
So even though he has fought people who are probably extremely intelligent and even skilled at martial arts combat, he himself usually wins these fights without the same finesse that they do. So he doesn't go in throwing down some jujutsu or crazy martial arts most of the time, and even though he has shown some good feats of combat before, he usually doesn't do these types of maneuvers. However, we know that Kratos was a renowned general of the Spartan army and was raised in Spartan tradition. This would include advanced training in the form of wrestling alongside hand-to-hand combat and weapon mastery. For example, we see this most consistently throughout the 4th game, where Kratos practically wrestles and grapples Baldur throughout all of their encounters. Another example would be with Zeus in the final game of the trilogy as well. Now that we've established combat experience, we can give a better look into their abilities. One of the most important abilities during this fight would have to be stamina, in which Thor would have the upper hand. He's basically fought people for centuries, whereas Kratos' main stamina feat is surviving the climb up Pandora's temple for 3 days straight without any form of fatigue. It's very possible that he could maintain his stamina for a longer period of time, but sadly we don't have much evidence for this personally. However, one argument you could do to amplify Kratos' stamina in terms of a rational argument would be somewhat of a genetic one. He hails from Zeus respectively and all the gods, and with these gods being able to fight for eons and possibly immeasurable amounts of time, due to battling and scaling above beings who have fought before time even existed to measure how long they went at it. If you think Kratos should remotely scale to the gods in terms of these stamina feats, then Kratos could probably do this as well. Due to Thor having a very clear gap in stamina empirically over Kratos, we then have to dive into whether or not a fight between them would even last that.
This was actually pretty cool. If you haven't seen it, I think it's from a series of animated shorts called Hulk Versus, where he takes on different people. This was actually really, really well done. I highly recommend you go watch it if you haven't seen it.
That long to begin with. But as we described, even if Kratos doesn't have the stamina to fight that long, he does in fact defeat people that can. In the majority of the fights that Kratos finds himself in, it eventually falls down to his special abilities or his relentless aggression towards his enemies that results in him being the victor.
Well, there's that, and also the fact that he's the main character and he can't die, so there's that. You got
talked about Kratos for a decent bit. I'll give him a break to go over Thor's basic equipment and special abilities he'll have access to throughout the fight. Thor's main piece of equipment should be obvious, and that is his Mjolnir. Mjolnir is a magical hammer made of a special metal known as Uru that was obtained by Odin when he wrestled with a catastrophic storm known as the god Tempest, which allows Thor to harness and control his lightning at will, alongside granting him other abilities as well. As for Kratos, I'd be sitting here for hours trying to explain all of his equipment and the abilities that they provide for him.
Yeah, there's way too many,
I'll only be mentioning the most important pieces, whilst giving a brief summary of what they can do. The first piece of equipment, and probably the most powerful in his arsenal, would be the Blade of Olympus. The Blade of Olympus is basically the strongest weapon of God of War, at least the original trilogy, and empowers Kratos with his godly energy that he lost at the beginning of God of War 2, alongside providing him with some pretty sick stuff, such as being capable of draining his enemies of their godly energy, which Thor has a considerable amount of, alongside creating an AoE attack that banishes his foes to Tartarus. This is not all their equipment, but it is important to start off with the knowledge that they have those things. If they actually fought, the initial reaction is more than likely a CQB brawl, in which Kratos would have the upper hand. If he does have the upper hand, and has the Blade of Olympus, then he would gradually become stronger and stronger, while Thor grows weaker to the point that Thor's immense stamina would no longer matter. Due to Thor losing in a conventional sense, Thor would result to his ultimate ability, which is called the God Blast. In Thor's own words, the God Blast is Thor fusing his life force with his hammer to create an unsurpassed attack that can destroy opponents even way stronger than himself. In terms of power, the God Blast is capable of surpassing even Odin and a hungry Galactus. Odin scales to Surtur, whose flames were going to consume the Yggdrasil, which encompasses the entire multiverse and holds every dimension, etc. Odin also fought a character named Seth, not to confuse with me, and during their battle, they were ripping apart the fabric of the multiverse in Doctor Strange's words. Due to this, the God Blast would utterly annihilate Kratos upon impact, probably even when heavily nerfed. However, Kratos has a hidden ability that allows him to survive the onslaught of Fear Zeus, who is the conceptual embodiment of fear, and this is referred to as Hope. Hope basically provides him access to returning from death, as long as he is in the mindset of forgiving himself and absolving from his past mistakes, which he will be, being as that's what happened to him at the end of God of War 3. The God Blast, due to its scaling of being able to eradicate Galactus, should in turn be able to erase concepts themselves, probably concepts above concepts, as weird as that sounds. However, the only problem is that you'd have to argue that Thor would have to have prior knowledge on Kratos at the start of the fight to even know to target the concept of hope, which Kratos would regenerate with, which is a bit of a stretch. Due to this, it may be very likely Kratos would revive, and would probably eventually defeat base Thor by wearing him down and stealing his power. One thing you can bring up is that the God Blast also has a draining ability, as described by Galactus when he got hit by it, comparing it as it drains his strength like the sunlight drains the dark. This would mean even if Kratos survived, that perhaps he would not be nerfed, but at the end of God of War 3, when Kratos stabbed himself with the Blade of Olympus, it had no effect on his abilities or his hope abilities, and even possibly granted him even more powers. One thing that potentially gives Kratos another leg up in this argument is that his bare hands can pretty much beat up concepts, let alone his own body, which probably is just blatantly above them. These concepts being fear, which was embodied in Zeus at the end of 3. There is another argument that Thor does have the ability to remove Kratos from the equation by sending him to a realm in which Kratos would not be able to escape from. However, this ability is something that Thor rarely uses in character. However, if he did do it, Kratos would be hard-pressed to counter this. For those that are concerned about speed scaling, both Thor and Kratos have speed feats that allow them to move so fast they travel through time. For example, I'll show a few for Thor on screen, but one of these is his ability to throw his hammer so fast it just travels back in time. And for Kratos, he is capable of moving along the Yggdrasil and inside its borders, which completely transcends time utterly. If you don't think that this Yggdrasil travel feat compares to what Thor did or is somehow inconsistent, then Thor would take the win with speed alone. In a conventional fight, however, Kratos would defeat base Thor. This, like I said, is for base Thor. If we were to say put Cosmic King Thor against Kratos, it would be drastically different. Cosmic King no longer gets most of his power from his god abilities, but from Galactus. So the Blade of Olympus would likely have very
Yeah, I think I remember hearing about Cosmic King Thor.
In terms of power, we know that Black Silver Surfer could fight the Griever for 16 minutes straight, and the Griever represents the concept of the end of the multiverse to the end of eternity, which eternity encompasses the superflow, which is the space between universes, which is beyond the concepts of time and space entirely. Black Silver Surfer, for reference, was not confident in fighting a being named Null or the Black Winter, both of which Cosmic King Thor could contest, and even if Thor was slightly weaker than those beings, he would at least scale to that tier of strength. In all honesty, this far exceeds the likes of anything God of War has mustered so far, meaning Kratos would more than likely defeat base Thor from the comics and lose to the Cosmic King. Thank you all for watching. A special thanks to my guy Kratos, very unique name, for helping me out with some Kratos hacks, knowledge, and so on. And a shout out to Dripnose, who actually works at Frito-Lay, apparently. He wanted me to let you know that. Anyways, thank you so much, and subscribe and if you enjoyed it. Until next time.
I think that's the end of the video. Yeah, there we go. So, okay. That was a good video. Now, here's the thing. I can't say anything about Cosmic King Thor because, again, I'm not all that familiar with his feats and what he could do in the comics. Because I think this must have happened back when I kind of gave up on reading comics. Because it got to a point where I just the stories were kind of not really interesting me. So just dropped it. And based on what I've been hearing from Marvel Comics now, it's kind of a good thing I didn't pick them back up because they sound absolutely awful. So yeah, I can't speak to Cosmic King Thor, and I can't say whether or not Kratos would win. The one thing that he said in this video that I really do disagree with is that he said that older Kratos is actually weaker than God of War 3 Kratos. That's actually one where I completely disagree because, again, Cory Barlog did kind of confirm that Kratos was heavily holding himself back in the 2018 game. Now, the reason that he gave, I don't really remember exactly what it is. I think it was something about wanting to protect Atreus, or just not wanting Atreus to see what like what Kratos is actually capable of when he's not holding himself back. And we did kind of see that in the second trailer for, well, not really the second trailer, the first official trailer for God of War Ragnarok, where Kratos, like he hears a question from Atreus and he says, or not a question, he says, you know, maybe you should start acting more like a general, and then that just immediately triggers him, and he turns around and says, you know, no, because and we fans, we know why he said that. Like, but Atreus, he even though Kratos said that he told him everything, I don't think that that's necessarily the case, because there's still a lot of things that Atreus probably doesn't know about what Kratos was actually like in the past, and he probably does not want him to act like a general, because when he was a general, he was willing to do whatever it takes to get what he wanted. And that's pretty much the reason why he is where he is now, because he had that mindset. And I think that maybe something's going to happen in the game where Kratos says, okay, I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to have to be like I was before if I want to save my son. Because a lot of people have predicted that maybe Atreus is going to get kidnapped in the game by either Thor or Odin, and Kratos will probably have to go back to, like I said, how he was in the past in order to get him back. Now, I personally don't think that that's the case. Maybe we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, share this video, and remember to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to let you be notified whenever I post a new video, and also leave a comment letting me know your thoughts. And as always, guys, if you have a video you want me to watch, just let me know about it in the comment section down below. And also consider subscribing to my second channel. You'll find a link to it in the description box down below. I'm going to be posting content there that I don't think I can post here on the main channel, because it might get me in trouble with copyright. So head on over there, go subscribe to that channel to help that channel grow. And as always, I'll leave a link to this video as well as a link to Seth's channel, so you can go support him over there. With that being said, guys, again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye for now.